for joining our 8 News Now Investigators program. I'm Vanessa Murphy, investigative reporter at KLAS TV in Las Vegas.
And I'm David Charnes, an investigative reporter, also at 8 News Now here in Las Vegas.
And today we are going to be talking about David's coverage of a cause he is passionate about, figuring out DUI, driving under the influence in the state of Nevada.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, to say the least. We keep hitting records in the wrong way, right? We talk about the number of people who've died on our roads, whether that's at the hands of a drunk driver, an impaired person walking across the street when they shouldn't. Obviously, we're in a 24/7 liquor town, which is beneficial to our economy, but not necessarily beneficial to our livelihood sometimes, because we continuously see people die because of these traffic crashes. And it is something that affects all of us, right? You know,
Absolutely.
People kind of say, why are you kind of, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but why have you kind of made this your mission? And it's because when I'm driving, I see it all the time. If you talk to anyone who drives in Southern Nevada, in the Las Vegas area, people drive like maniacs, right?
Yeah.
People speed, people are on their phones, people are impaired, people are smoking weed, they're drinking,
Right.
and it's really, really bad. And kind of when I got here 5 years ago, one of the things that I started to notice isn't necessarily the number of DUI arrests, but the number of people who are arrested for their third or fourth or their fifth DUI and really don't see any consequences until they kill someone. And then they may not even really see a really harsh consequence. Now, what's a harsh consequence? That's really up to you to decide. But
David,
it's
I
really
want to
bad.
play sort of a montage of some of your excellent work. Let's take a look.
Policemen investigating an impaired driver when Williams, severely intoxicated himself, hit and killed them and then drove off. 4-time DUI offender was then able to get behind the wheel drunk again and hit and kill a man crossing the street. Marian Reyes from her 7th DUI. It's likely her last. It's a whole education piece to drinking and driving, and that Nevada already has some of the harshest laws on the books. Do things need to change?
There's a request to elevate fatal accident DUI with implied intent.
What we're doing right now certainly isn't working.
There's really not a bigger forest fire in our community right now than people dying on our roadways from drunk and drug driving.
We're going to hold you accountable for responsible behavior when it comes to your alcohol consumption. And if you kill somebody, you're going to be held accountable here.
That person literally could just go to jail for 2 years and that's it.
How many families have to suffer before the lawmakers finally pull their head out of the sand and are like, something has to give.
Where is he? Down there, Sarge. Hold it.
It was a drunk driver.
David, great work. Not only talking to elected officials who have the power to make some changes in some cases, but also talking about the people who are affected, victims, the families. Let's take a quick break. Welcome back to our 8 News Now Investigators program. I'm Vanessa Murphy.
I'm David Charnes.
David, we just saw some of your great work, and you had mentioned earlier that people might ask you why you are obsessed with this issue. For one, you're human, and you talk with the people affected, and in some cases, these are victims, maybe a mother, a father, a child who lost someone to this.
Yeah, and I think I forget who it was. It might have been the sheriff who was like, in our reporting, he's quite passionate about this traffic issue, which I think is why he has spoken to us a couple of times now, because he does think that getting it on television will create some advocacy. I think it was him who said, why do you focus on this? And I started telling this story about how I had moved here, and within like 3 months, I was at a intersection and someone blew through the intersection, slammed into another car, and then almost hit me. That person wasn't impaired. Wasn't impaired. But I think it was the sheriff who was like, oh, well, yeah, that was traumatic for you. And then what's also been traumatic for me is sitting in these sentencing hearings, right, time after time, where someone knowingly gets behind the wheel of a car, a vehicle, which then when you're going 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, really becomes a weapon. and you're knowingly impaired, right? We all know when too much is too much, and you hit and kill someone. And I was in many of these sentencings where either there was a plea deal or a judge decided that the lower end of Nevada law was appropriate because it was a mistake. And
say that to a family member,
Right.
though, who lost someone, and they say it's not an accident.
right.
You made a choice.
You made a choice, right? So Nevada law calls for these sentences to be 2 to 20 years. As part of these years long of investigating, we really found the maximum is 8 because most people get paroled after 8 years, if that is the maximum. There are some people who do 2 and then get credit and get much less than that. There are some people who rarely, really don't get much consequence at all. And that's frustrating, right? And that's frustrating for some of those families who say, well, is so-and-so's life worth 2 years? Right. And I think you talk to anyone in this community, and we're going to talk about some of the laws and potential changes to the law, but there is not an issue except, high prices and rent in our community that I think affects more people. We all drive. And at this point, I think we all know someone who's either been killed in a crash, injured in a crash, or is on the other side and knows someone who was driving. And it's frustrating for me to see our lawmakers just not want to deal with it.
But you're getting attention with some of your pieces. Set us up for this first story we'll see, which just aired. We're recording this in late October of 2025.
We're getting ready for our Halloween costumes. It might go as a stoplight or a traffic cone. But what I'm proud of is that we identified a delay in some of these cases where people were getting arrested for a DUI, but not actually charged with a DUI. That's extremely important because people think, oh, police charge you and well, prosecutors and judges charge, grand juries charge, police don't charge. So what we found is people are getting arrested for DUI, but they're not actually charged for months later. And that's because
there's really not a bigger forest fire in.
And Southern Nevada, we have a couple of police
There's really not a
agencies
bigger forest fire in our community.
State crime
Get things
lab.
done
We're one of
quicker.
2 states that doesn't have a crime lab. So Metro does most of the testing. And they're backed up because they only have so many people and they have to do the work. So we had investigated that issue, and I had an update to that story that aired earlier this week. And we can show you that now.
There's really not a bigger forest fire in our community right now than people dying on our roadways from drunk and drug driving.
It's a forest fire Clark County Sheriff McMahill is trying to put out. Death and heartache on our roads, often at the hands of drunk and impaired drivers.
I don't see 304 or 502.
For several months, the 8 News Now investigators have explored Nevada's DUI laws.
I think 304's been hit. He's on D Street.
Prompted in part when lawmakers took no action after the deaths of 2 state troopers. Sergeant Michael Abate and Trooper Alberto Felix parked on the side of this freeway off-ramp investigating a sleeping drunk driver when a second drunk driver hit and killed them.
Kill somebody on accident.
Yeah.
Our investigating led us to the case of then 22-year-old Alfredo Harwigi, a 4-time DUI driver without a license, who, while awaiting a court date for that 4th DUI, hit and killed a veteran crossing the street. We found delays in testing Harwigi's blood. An important step in filing actual criminal charges against him allowed him to walk free. Even though a judge told him not to drive, he got behind the wheel and drove drunk for a now 5th time, though this time it proved deadly.
It is difficult to put a restriction on somebody when you don't have those blood results, when you don't have the complaint in front of you. So
Las Vegas Justice Court Chief Judge Melissa De La Garza told us those blood testing delays meant she and other judges couldn't legally hold a person or put any real restrictions on them. While a judge did order Harwigi to wear a blood alcohol monitor, we found the company that runs that alcohol monitoring program terminated Harwigi because he failed to pay fines with the monitor itself. Weeks later, 45-year-old George Brown was dead.
Those are the people clearly that we're worried about.
The chief judge and other leaders brought this issue to this committee. Clark County's Criminal Justice Coordinating Council is made up of police, judges, and other stakeholders, all working to improve the criminal justice system. One goal, highlight those delays in testing so drivers like Alfredo Jauregui don't have to wait months and judges can take action. Metro's average time to process DUI blood samples at the beginning of the year was 55 days. It's now down to 29.
I've always believed that the swifter that justice is associated to the time that a person committed a crime, the better that we all are for it.
So we'll test the alcohol first because it's quicker.
Deputy Chief Brandon Clarkson oversees Metro's crime lab, where toxicologists test blood from all those DUI arrests and crashes. In addition to Metro, they're also testing for most agencies in Southern Nevada because Nevada is one of 2 states without a statewide crime lab. Now, the process is happening faster than ever before because staff here will stop testing for other drugs once results show a person is well above the legal limit for alcohol. Clarkson says that means the staff, which includes an additional toxicologist and 2 more in training, can move on to the next case.
And being able to speed up this process and work with to get successful prosecution is speeding up that testing process so we can get more turnaround quicker and hold people accountable for DUIs.
Sir, is there anything you want to say to me?
Last month, a judge sentenced Jauregui to 3 to 10 years in prison as part of a plea deal.
Did somebody make you drink against your will, or did you drink because you wanted to?
I drank because I wanted.
So that's not an accident, is it?
While his case is now closed, the sheriff says the 8 News Now investigators reporting pushed this conversation so the next possible offender doesn't have any opportunity to get behind the wheel.
I appreciate you guys bringing attention to it, first off, because it helps us get things done quicker.
So, David, you are clearly making a difference.
Thank you. You know, what I forgot to say is this all kind of escalated when the troopers died. And, you know, people are always like, oh, was your dad in law enforcement? You know, why? And I have an affinity with the law enforcement community. I just thank them. And when I don't think you can get any more ridiculous when you have 2 state troopers investigating one drunk driver get hit and killed by another drunk driver, and no one did anything. So I did, right? I mean, we talk about it all the time. You know, we're going to do it. So I think I remember I got a phone call from state police almost a year to the date that happened. That happened November of 2023. So this was last November. And they said, we're filling your records request. You'll get it next week. And I was like, what request? And I had asked for all the video. Mm-hmm. And they gave us the video already redacted. So we didn't see them actually get hit, which I didn't need to see and no one needed to see. But what we did see was all the officers responding who were looking for them. And they were hit so badly that they were thrown over the on-ramp onto the ground below in this hit-and-run crash. And when all this information started coming out and we were looking into the history of the driver and how he got so drunk, honestly, it just annoyed me. And
well, these things are preventable.
100% preventable.
Preventable.
And then that story led us to the blood testing original story we did that March. And we found this gentleman's case, which also 100% preventable, had his blood come in, had there been more resources, had a judge been able to do something, right? A judge couldn't even do something. And then what the judge was able to do, the little they could do, which was put the bracelet on him, failed because he couldn't pay the fine. So it was just like thing after thing after thing. And then what made this good was the sheriff saw that story and was like, I know you guys are working on this. We need to do something now.
And then you made another discovery, which we will get to after a quick break. Welcome back to our 8 News Now Investigators program. I'm Vanessa Murphy.
I'm David Charnes. We just showed you that story that showed how Metro was taking action on getting those blood tests back sooner. So what was a 55-day delay is now 29. The sheriff saying that because of the story, it really kind of pushed things along, which we're thankful that he made that recognition. And obviously, what you mentioned earlier, it is our job to push these issues out, and I'm glad to help. What we haven't mentioned yet, though, is how lawmakers failed in their legislative session earlier this year to really do anything. In that original clip of stories we showed you in the beginning of this, you saw the governor say we're submitting a request. And that request was to make DUI drivers who kill face a minimum of 10 years in prison, which basically aligns with Nevada's second-degree murder statute. You kill someone, but you didn't mean to. Whereas first-degree murder is you kill someone and you had the intent. That failed dramatically, and along with a lot of the governor's proposals in terms of crime, it got amended, and then it basically became the same law, which is now, which is 2 to 20 years. It was amended to be 2 to 25 years. But again, most people only serve the max of 8. That just kind of infuriated a lot of people more. And hopefully when they go into their special session, again, we're recording this at the end of October, that we know they're going to retake some of these issues. We just don't know what action they'll do. But I really, people are screaming for change. So you hear it, I hear it, we see it every day. In that story you just saw about the blood results, I found that committee. And the chief judge had kind of introduced us to the committee and said, well, there's this committee. It's made up of police and judges. Obviously, she's on it. Stakeholders who want to make our system better, our criminal justice system better. And while
there's really not a bigger forest fire in our community.
I found out that the director of that committee was arrested for DUI. And we'll play that story now.
An arrest report the 8 News Now investigators obtained reveals Lindsay LaMontagne, the director of the Clark County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, a panel comprised of police, judges, and other leaders tasked with fixing our criminal justice system, faces a misdemeanor DUI charge. Documents revealing a state trooper pulled her over in April after another person called police to report a swerving driver who had, quote, driven off the road approximately 5 times. LaMontagne telling the trooper she had 2 shots of vodka downtown and that she works for Clark County. The trooper arrested LaMontagne, who, according to the report, told that officer that he ruined her life. She was then booked into the city jail, where a technician drew her blood. We asked the sheriff about what this arrest and the recent DUI arrest of a state senator all mean amid the conversation about how drunk driving is affecting our community.
I became aware of that actually through some conversation that you had with some folks at Metro around this particular issue. I guess I'll say 2 things to you. I also believe in forgiveness. When you pay the price for what it is that you've done, it can't be held against you for the rest of your life. But it is problematic to me that we have people in those positions supposedly trying to solve the problems that we have that are facing those DUI charges themselves.
Yeah, I mean, so she's the director of the committee, and we should say she's not a judge, she's not a police officer, she's basically the executive assistant who does the agendas and she brings the topics, and she is a former corrections officer according to her bio, and long story short, she knows better. You and
innocent until proven guilty,
until proven guilty.
This has not gone through the court
It is
system.
October. She had an arraignment. One of the reasons why we talked about that was she was arrested April 27th. Her first court date was the end of August because of those delays, right? So it's not, it's not good for anybody. You're waiting around for 4 months. Just get it going, right? And she'll have a bench trial and see what happens. And we did talk to the county, and they sent me a statement, and they basically said what I just said, that innocent until proven guilty, and they could take action if they wanted to at a certain point, and she is the director of the committee.
Who did you reach out to get her side of the story?
Her attorney. So what's ironic about this whole story is we did see that state senator Edgar Flores, who also faces a DUI charge. He's not in court until January. He also innocent until proven guilty. We know his blood alcohol result was just above the legal limit of 0.08, and he has said to me that he was tired and regrets anything that happened. And he, according to his story, had one beer and had a very long day. What is interesting is she's actually represented by another state senator, and we never got a response from her. Now, we went to that meeting, and everyone knew why we were there. And I asked the county for permission. That was not a public meeting, so they did allow us to come.
As they should.
As they should. It is important to to that first story, though, because they did bring up this issue. Like, it was worked on in that committee. We need to show that. And I did not pester her. I did not even ask her, right? Because I felt it was more appropriate to go through her attorney. She's not a multi-time DUI offender. From what those documents say, according to that, and what we know at this time, she made a bad mistake. But what I say is, we live in Las Vegas. You drink, I drink. People choose to do that, and you can make the decision to take a Uber or a Lyft or whatever you want.
Public transportation,
Or have
call
a
a
friend
friend
drive
or
you.
family member,
So
a cab.
I live 10 miles outside of town, and I Uber back and forth all the time, right? And it's unfortunate that someone in that leadership position who works at the county level that we pay to do that work faces that charge.
And David, you could argue you reached out to her attorney to get a response. You could argue, though, you could have gone up to her with a microphone to
Totally.
get her side of the story, considering her position. And when we do
Totally.
that, we don't take it lightly.
We don't, and the photographer and I talked about that. I talked about it with our producer. I'm sure I talked about it with you. I know I talked about it with Kyle, who's not here. Because we deal with when is that appropriate, right? And it's appropriate when you're really getting no response. I didn't want to embarrass her more than I knew was going to be in the story.
I mean, she's on TV.
And the story isn't meant to embarrass her. It's meant to show how our local government is working, right? Because if we're doing all these stories about how the law isn't working, how the system isn't working, and someone who's tasked with fixing the system is allegedly part of that problem, we have a big problem, right? And that's what the point was. And I didn't feel like running up to her in this meeting with all those people, Metro, state police, parole, probation, that's I wouldn't want someone to do that to me.
What was the vibe when you were there?
Again, I think everyone knew why we were there because we had put in a request with the county to go. I'm sure they had to get approval from the chairs, so I'm sure they knew. And no one said anything to us. We came in before the meeting started. We set up. He shot some video, and we left. And that was it. And no one said anything. And no one has said anything since. I mean, privately, people have said, really good reporting, and I'm appreciative of those compliments. But again, we're not doing it for that. I just want to see this change because what is happening here, as you heard the district attorney say in one of those sound bites, what we're doing isn't working. And, we have this, not her case, but we have that man young guy, 22 when he was arrested, who had 4 DUIs and got his 5th and got 3 to 10 years. And that was a plea deal. So that was a thing that he worked out with prosecutors. He could get out in 3 years, too, because he's already been in jail. And is a life worth that? And no one really wants to answer that up in Carson City.
And you're exploring these issues, you're raising these questions. We like to hear from our viewers about them. And one thing I want to mention before we wrap up is it really helps that you have stayed focused on this and dedicated to this issue because you have become an expert where you know the law inside and out. It's not an obsession, it's dedication.
It's dedication because I don't want me or you or someone watching this to be the next number, right? When we get those press releases, what do they say at the top? Fatal 100, Fatal 101, Fatal 102.
And it's too often.
And I don't want to be Fatal 103. And those people are sitting ducks and have no, they become the next victim without even knowing. And we need to fix this, and we need to continue pushing. Now, I will say lawmakers did change one little law that had to do with a person's second DUI, and instead of serving 10 days in jail, someone will serve 20. Most of those people serve a suspended sentence and never go to jail anyway. But we're not stopping, right? We're not stopping. So,
David, good work. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.